Hi, Jack McElroy here again with Autoimmune Disease Solutions. And our special guest tonight, or today, is Dr. David Jernigan. He's from the Hansa Center in Wichita, Kansas. And he's been called the Dr. Rao of America. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Jernigan and ask him a few questions. But first, can you tell us a little bit about how you get started in biological medicine or functional medicine, and what's your background, and tell us a little bit about that and your success stories as well.
Well, I got started almost immediately with a case that came to my clinic, and a professor of mine had actually referred her, which shocked me because, you know, as my professor, he should have known I didn't know anything. At least you know a lot of facts, you know, when you get out of college, and you haven't really processed it and have the experience to really know what to do with that.
Now, where did you go to school?
Cleveland Chiropractic in Kansas City.
Okay, so you're a chiropractor.
Yeah.
And you know, may I say this? When I was starting my journey in natural health, or trying to solve our daughter's autoimmune disease problem, the folks that I learned the most about health from were chiropractors, because they, first of all, they're well trained, and secondly, they care about how to make somebody healthy. So it's not to say that all are the same, but they, in many cases, have expanded their knowledge and have learned about what the cause of problems are and how to solve them. I'm sorry, sir.
Well, that's excellent. I'm glad you know about that, because most people don't know why they should maybe go to a doctor of chiropractic when they have a chronic illness. And it's interesting because, you know, the chiropractic as a profession came together, and they found out when the medical schools found out that if all they did was crank out general practitioners, your general family doctor, let's say, for the next, I don't know how many years, there still wouldn't be enough medical doctors to be GPs to supply the demand. Because and it's still this way, most of your doctors are specializing. You're either going to be infectious disease or rheumatology or cardiology. You're going to go into the specialties. Yeah. So it's the same in chiropractic, by the way. I mean, you have all kinds of specialties you wouldn't imagine, like internal medicine even. So there's diplomate status, which is the highest level of training certification a doctor can get, is your diplomate in internal medicine. So these are chiropractors that specialize in all the different blood tests and things like that. So chiropractic as a profession, and I know this isn't a chiropractic promotional video, but you kind of did ask for, you know, how do we get to where we are?
Well, though it's not a promotional for chiropractic, the thing is, I don't know that anybody or any of our audience really cares. What they're looking for is a solution, and some chiropractors do have solutions to your problems. So it's important in that respect. You know, if all that counts, well, and most of our audience, I'm sure, has already been through the mill, has already seen lots of MDs, and they've found that in the end, all that they've ended up with is a pill that's supposed to suppress their system, or suppress the symptoms, and yet there is no solution and they're still sick.
Yeah. So from a philosophy, that's what I teach a lot of. When I blog, when I write articles, I'm really trying to contrast to enable people and tell stories about patients so they can identify with those situations. But it's like, philosophically, chiropractic came together and said, we will teach our doctors to be the portal entry physicians. And that's really important to understand, that we're getting trained in everything that your general practitioner would, your medical doctor would now, except for pharmacology. We don't do surgery, obviously, but we're licensed to do every single test out there that's available. And we're licensed in various states to treat every tissue in the human body. So the interesting thing that does as a doctor of chiropractic, and like I say, the very first patient I had turned out to be a little girl that would pass out like she's dead. She just like, her lips would turn blue, her eyes roll back in her head, not breathing. And the mother would freak out and run up and grab her child and, oh my gosh. And she'd come back, scream, and kind of come back to life. You know? And 3 pediatricians and 2 neurologists all said the same thing. Your child is just holding her breath. Kids do this sometimes. Well, when I figured it out, and to this day I can't really exactly remember how I figured it out, but I figured it was right out of the book. Textbook for a reaction to a DPT vaccine, a vaccine injury. And we treated it, right then and there. I told the lady, I was like, if you don't mind coming to my in-laws' house, I don't even have a treatment table. I don't have intake forms even. But that was the situation. My very first patient out of school, and we got her well. She never had another one, and it took off into the chronic illnesses almost right away. And philosophically, the really important thing is I had to develop a whole process, a whole way of thinking of illness that didn't have the pharmaceuticals. Like I didn't have access to pharmaceuticals. And the people that were coming had been that full gamut, and they were like, Tag, you're it. I'm going to live or die based on the fact of whether you can actually fix me. And that really, it was amazing. What happened was this transformation over time of like kind of going, how did that work when somebody was remarkably and miraculously healed very often?
Yeah.
And starting to realize, yes, you have an infection, but do I need to kill it for your body, or can your body actually do that for itself? Way beyond just simply saying, let's boost your immune system. I mean, that's just such a generic thing anymore. It's just like, some of the more exotic illnesses now, if you boost the immune system, the patient dies. You better have a lot better tools and philosophy of what creates health in the first place if you're wanting to deal with some of these exotic things, because the bugs have mutated beyond recognition many times. There's a Dr. Gitta who I heard lecture. She was a PhD microbiologist who said, you don't see classic strep anymore. You don't see classic anything anymore because all the bugs are mutating. Okay, viruses many times inserting their viral DNA into a bacteria and causing the bacteria to do different things, to become extremely more dangerous and things. So it's like you can't open a textbook and figure out, how do I treat this new bug? And is it truly the bug that's the cause? If you run into a tree with the lawnmower or your car, you bump into it, it damages the bark. That's where the virus gets into that tree. Everyone's seen them, those big knots that form on the tree on the side. That's a viral infection in that tree. But the surrounding trees don't have big knots on them. Okay?
Yeah.
Viruses apparently are all around, but these other trees are not damaged. The actual bark, the protective mechanisms of that tree hasn't been damaged yet, and therefore the virus doesn't affect those trees. It affects it when you have a breakdown in the structure and functional integrity of the tree. And it's the same in the human body. It's like, if we can restore every single aspect of the function and the integrity and the biocommunication systems of the body, health falls away. You wouldn't have an allergy, you wouldn't have an autoimmune disease, you wouldn't have this overreaction of the body. More and more we're seeing these people that are just incredibly sick from all manner of, people don't even know what to call it because it looks like so many different illnesses mixed up together. And you don't have to be a master of these diseases.
Well, interestingly, I heard you say that you do not treat named diseases.
No.
Now that is a different, when was the last time you ever heard anybody say anything like that? We do not treat named diseases. It seems to me that names, they're just Greek names or Greek endings that they put on a description of symptoms.
I have a funny story to tell you about that, though.
Please.
I had a lady that came in, and she was first day of her visit, and she hands me very tearfully, I mean, this is a well-dressed, educated woman, handed me this sheet of paper from her doctor, her medical doctor, and it said, essentially, more power to the next guy who can fix this. She has unilateral cephalgia.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. And she's like, but I have unilateral cephalgia, Dr. Jernigan. It sounds horrible, doesn't it?
Yes.
All that doctor was saying, unilateral cephalgia means pain on one side of your head.
Yes.
So essentially the doctor she paid that MD essentially to convert what she came in saying was wrong into Latin, which is unilateral cephalgia, and it sounds like this deadly disease. But a named disease, it doesn't matter what you call it. Yes, I kind of like to know what somebody else has named it or labeled it.
Right.
But where the rubber meets the road is like, how are you going to fix it? And there's nobody,
you.
there is hardly any philosophy out there anymore. I mean, there is in biological medicine, but think about it. When they're like a young man that came from Canada who 53 major symptoms, not like kind of minor, I mean, horrible situation, wheelchair, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't feed himself, couldn't shower himself, imagine, right? And what are you going to call it? I mean, it has just the earmarks of so many different illnesses. And at the end of the day, it's just like, who do you go see in the medical system to fix that? Because you need the neurologist for the neurological aspect, you need the cardiologist for the heart problems he was having, you needed the rheumatologist for all the pain stuff, and he had kidney problems and he couldn't digest, so you need the GI, GU guys, and you need all these different specialties, and I understand that's what the hospital is supposed to do. But anymore, there's no one doctor that understands the entirety of the human existence, from the body, mind, and spirit, from the most cutting edge science of how everything in your body is set up on circuits. How it all fits together is what really makes and breaks a case. If the doctor doesn't see that your teeth, specific teeth, sit on the same circuit with an organ and a gland and a neurological level and a muscle, and anything goes wrong on that circuit of tissues, blows out the whole circuit, just like in your house. It's just like you don't have one big circuit in your house. You have a circuit breaker box. You go out there and you can usually read it. It says like living room, kitchen, air conditioner, whatever it is, right?
Great analogy.
Well, if the kitchen circuit blows, it's not just your toaster that goes out. It's everything else on that circuit. And you can put a new toaster in, you can put new light bulbs in your sockets, you can put new wiring in, but if you don't get to the problem, and many times there's multiple problems in a circuit in the body. It's too late many times when people come to us to just find one thing, and that's something people generally don't want to hear. They're happy they finally got a diagnosis. Let's say it was Lyme disease, and they go, oh my gosh, don't confuse me with the facts. I have Lyme, and if my doctor can just kill these bacteria, then I'll be well. They're on this saga of the kill for the body. It's like if you could take the bark of the tree that got damaged and restore it, then the virus passes on by and you don't have anything. If you could, or the knot just falls off the tree and the tree is healed. And that's what we see, and it doesn't have to take a long time. We're talking earlier about, like, I look at patients and very often it's so sad because I know that it didn't have to get this bad. How do I know? Because very often it's just like they just rise and walk in the clinic. If they couldn't walk, they can walk. If they couldn't hear, they can hear. If they couldn't see out of an eye, we have these cases where it's just like the blind to see, the deaf to hear, the people in wheelchairs. Like we talked about a graphics situation that we were talking about earlier. My dream is that I'm going to have a graphic designer take a picture of our clinic, which sits on a lake, a small lake, and I'm going to have like all these half-submerged walkers and wheelchairs pictured in the lake. Because seriously, like last week before, just last week, a young girl that couldn't walk, and she's just walking now.
What was she diagnosed with?
Wasn't my patient, but as I understood, she'd been diagnosed with Lyme. There's usually a whole hodgepodge of other diagnoses they've gotten from other doctors, and so.
So what did you do? What were some of the therapies that she went through that helped her to, or helped her body to recover?
Well, I've developed systems and ways of testing that allow us in the very first treatment, your very first treatment, to get every single circuit in your body up and running all at the same fell swoop.
Is that, okay, I can see where that's a good thing. However, is that a problem? Does that overload the body? In other words, it's like turning everything on at once. Is that a problem? Okay.
No, not unless you don't want to walk and stuff.
Okay.
I got flown to England to treat a girl that hadn't walked in 6.5 months.
Was she Lyme
Yeah,
patient?
But again, by the time they've been through some of these suppressive treatments like the antibiotics, it's the do something for your body, and your body never learns anything through that. You know, if you switch to colloidal silver and you switched all these things that will also kill bugs for your body, you come back to I'm not arguing that they won't kill microbes. And I'm not even arguing that it's not a good idea to diminish the populations of these things that have overgrown. But at the end of the day, if your body cannot learn to do it and maintain these things for itself, you're never going to be well long term.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Your body has to, it is the program. It has to run itself.
Right. Now, it sounds really easy for me to say we turn on the circuits all in one fell swoop. You can't turn on the circuits when there's blockages everywhere in those circuits.
Ah, okay.
So that's the eloquence and the beauty of what we've created, is the ability to actually get those blockages addressed, get the primary things addressed, and get all the circuits turned on after each and every visit. So I looked down at this girl in England. She's probably 17-ish at the time. And I was done with what I wanted to do that day. Took about an hour. And I looked down at her on the table and I said, I'd like for you to stand up and walk across the room for me. And to her credit, she only had that deer in the headlights look for just a flash of a second. And she sat up,